Hi, my name is Elle Billing. I am a chronically ill queer femme, and I'm tired. I'm here this episode and every episode to dig at the roots of our collective fatigue, explore ways to direct our care in compassionate and sustainable ways, and to harness creative expression to heal ourselves and to heal our world. Welcome to Hoorf, Radical Care in a Late Capitalist Hexscape. My guest for this episode is Charlie Reynolds. Charlie Reynolds is a conceptual artist who explores themes of war, gender, and disability using fibers, installations, and sculpture. He seeks to invite viewers to investigate the limitations of the body and the euphoria of breaking free from it. His art and developing practices reflect the struggle to reconcile his identity and his abilities. Charlie draws inspiration from the tradition of arte povera, incorporating meaningful or sentimental materials into projects, giving them a new purpose and life while also considering an object's history. Charlie is an MFA candidate at the University of Michigan, where he hopes to expand his practice with a specific interest in weaving, hand dyeing, and quilting. He's exploring the history of transgender rights and medicine through his art, with a particular interest in the current anti-trans laws in the United States. Having fled such laws in Tennessee, he is ready to use this time to fight. Charlie is one of the 9 recipients of the 2024 Midwest Award for Artists with Disabilities, and I am really, really excited to talk to him about his art practice today on the podcast. Welcome to the show. Hello, Charlie. Welcome to Hoorf.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. You are my first interview of season 3. I'm so excited.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, which would be everybody because this is the first episode of the season, Charlie and I were both winners of the 2024 Midwest Award for Artists with Disabilities, which was announced this summer. And that was I don't know about you, but that was a huge honor for me. It was a pretty big deal in my life. And so I wanted to interview other recipients of the award about their art practice and about their lives. And I was really happy that Charlie replied almost immediately to my email, which I always like as a podcast host, is getting replies to my emails. So I'm excited to have you here today.
Yeah, I mean, I was very surprised to first of all get the award and then to get your email. I was excited to talk to the other awardees. It's actually really funny when I got the email that I got the award, the very next day, I got an email saying I didn't get it.
So did I.
You did too?
Yeah, I think we all did.
And so I had a panic attack for an hour. And so I was on the phone with them, hello, what's going on? Thinking oh, how could they do this to me? Making me think I didn't get it. And then as they got on the phone with me, I got that third email saying, oh, we're so sorry. We made a mistake. You definitely did get it. And the guy was on the phone was like, we're so sorry for any heartache that we caused, but it was just a mistake email. But I was just like, you can't do this to me. I have PTSD. I have I have seizures. I have problems. I have a panic disorder.
Right. I also have anxiety, but I'm so busy with taking care of my mom. I didn't even have time to worry about it. I read the correction email before I read the one where they said I didn't get it. And so I read them out of order and I was like, oh, well, that would have upset me.
No, I screenshot it. I sent it to group chats and I was like, you guys. Like, I had already celebrated and everything.
Oh, yeah. Like, I had told my parents, I was like, I can't talk about this anywhere else. Oh, and then I told my sister because she and I both have this habit of like, well, we know this about each other. We can't hold on to surprises. Like, we'll buy each other a gift and then immediately be like, I bought you the coolest thing. So, yeah. When I read the second email, it was like, sorry about the email that we sent that said you didn't get the award. You really did get it. And I was like, oh, there was drama. I'm glad I missed that.
I lived the full experience.
I'm sorry you had to take that one for the team. I'm sure that stressed out everybody who actually got it in real time. Because, I mean, it's also a grant. And so, like, disabled people, as we know and live, are underemployed very often. And most grants that we apply for there's restrictions attached to them. Like, you have to spend them in certain ways. And this one is just like, here, we love you, have some money. And so it's very exciting. And then
Yeah.
because like, I'm sure you were immediately making plans.
Oh, absolutely.
And then the next day to be like, none of them plans can happen.
Oh, yeah. And I had to immediately like, oh, well, serves you right for thinking that you were going to buy all those uniforms and all that fabric with that money. Serves you right, Charlie.
Yeah. Nope. I totally understand the thought process.
And then it was just like, oh, just kidding. And I'm like playing with my emotions.
Yeah. I mean, I know how it happens though, because the way email management systems work, like Flowdesk or ConvertKit or any of those like list organizers, if they had forgotten to take us out of the list before they sent the mass email that said, thank you for applying, that's probably what happened. And then like, oh shoot, we forgot to take 9 people off that 9 very specific people off that list.
They're like, hurry, hurry, hurry. But at that point, I was like, until I'm on their website, I don't believe it.
Yeah, I understand. So now that we've talked about all of the things that can screw up our week, I would like to know, how have you received care? This is my question that I ask everybody, and I love getting the answers to it. How have you received care this week?
So, professionally, I have a nurse that comes over every week to fill out my med planner. I have shots that I get every week.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of unprofessionally, my husband is my caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
And this week, he got to do something fun, and I dislocated my knee from bending over. I have Ehlers-Danlos, so I dislocate my joints a lot.
Yep.
But usually not my knee. Usually you have like joints that you dislocate a lot. For me, it's usually my shoulders and my hips. But the knee is a new one that's been popping up, and he got to relocate that, and it was particularly brutal.
Oh.
And like afterwards, he was just kind of like, ugh, you know. It was one of those that like when he put it back in, there was a little bit of like screaming, and there was a good like crunch noise, and because I'm at the point that like I just can't go to the hospital every time I have a dislocation because it's just like
There's just so many of them
every other day. So he gets to act as my bone relocator, and he's getting pretty good at it. But
That's I think a different. I think disabled love has a different kind of intimacy that like the ableds don't understand or experience until it happens to them.
I mean, like, yeah, that like he just knows, like, okay, like it's time to just like put your bones back in, and he just knows like how to do every joint, and like I might pass out, I might have a seizure, I'm probably gonna scream, and like it's just something that he does with love and care, and he does it like automatically.
Yeah.
Often something that I'm not even like conscious through because I'm usually so in pain, like so out of it that I don't even really know that it's happening.
Wow. That's I mean, that's intense. I'm glad that he was able to do that for you, though. How does your knee feel now? Like once it's back in, does it settle down or does it stay sore
It
for a while?
usually it will be sore for like a day or two, depending.
Mhm.
Um, there are some cases where like we'll put it in wrong and it will like hit a muscle or it will hit
Mhm.
like a nerve, and I'll pretty much know that right away.
Yeah.
Um, and there have been times where I'll have to pop it back out and we'll have to pop it back in. And that
Oof.
is agony. But
Oh man.
that usually happens like once a year, maybe twice a year, but that's it. It's rare because at this point my joints are just so hypermobile
Mhm.
um that they just go in and out really easily.
Yeah, my sister just was recently in a vehicle collision. Um and had to go to the chiropractor, and she called me afterwards and she goes, "You're never going to believe what the chiropractor said to me." And I was like, "I probably will." And she's like, "He asked me if my joints have always been this mobile." And I was like, "I told you." Because several years ago, I was like, "Hey, have you ever looked at Ehlers-Danlos?" And she's like, "I don't think so." And now she's like, "I think I might have Ehlers-Danlos."
it's it's crazy. It's crazy how many of my friends have it now.
Yeah. Yep. The more we learn, it's one of those things where like we're at that point where like the more we learn about it, we're at that point where like so many people are like, actually, I
Yeah.
think honestly, like the Venn diagram of my friends who are autistic and my friends who have Ehlers-Danlos is like a circle. Like it's a completely overlap, almost a completely overlapping Venn diagram.
I can't tell you how many friends I had at school that would be like, "Man, like I have so much trouble eating. I have like so many like allergies now." And I would just turn around and be like, "I think you might have gastroparesis." And then I would talk to them more and find out like they have a lot of commonalities for Ehlers-Danlos.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, like they're comorbid, and you start just like racking up these diagnoses and like they start sounding like me.
Yeah. It's like,
Um,
sounds like your connective tissue doesn't work right.
yeah, because all of your internal organs are connective tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your joints are hypermobile, there's a good chance that you're going to have problems with, your gastric
Mm-hmm.
system.
Yeah. And then for some of us too, that impacts our reproductive system as well, which
Yep.
my sister and I both have that fun going on as well. So you just got back to school and you are studying for your MFA in art, yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You're also a veteran, right? I'm giving a little background. Were you an artist before you were in the military, or is this like a post military endeavor?
I didn't actually start making art until I became disabled
Oh,
after the
okay.
military.
Okay. So that does lead into my next question then. So how does your disability like inform your art? And then how has your art like influenced how you see your disability and how you like live with your disability? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So I I come from an artist family,
Mhm.
but it never really occurred to me to pursue art. My first memories are of my mom sketching. My grandma actually wins awards for her paintings, but I had like never really considered art myself. But when I became disabled, I just suddenly had like all this time on my hands, and like I had a disabled body and I just had nothing to do.
Mhm.
And like I could only watch so much TV. Um,
Yeah.
so like I just started painting my favorite thing, which was my service dog. And I just started painting him like over and over and over. And then I just started branching out. I started painting other things.
Mhm.
And the one thing I like to stick to as far as my art is I like to make things that I can physically make. And what I mean by that is like other artists will sometimes like outsource things.
Mm-hmm.
So like say you're a painter, but you want some like metal work. So you'll ask a metal worker to make that thing for you. But for me, I feel like really conceptually drawn to things that I can make with my own hand. So like if my disability prevents me from woodworking or metalworking, I'm going to find ways around it. I'm not going to include that in my work.
Mm-hmm.
It's meaningful to me to create something from start to finish. So without my disability, my art wouldn't exist. And my art is created through the unique problems that my disability creates. That's what makes my art, and nobody
Mm-hmm.
else can make it.
That's really cool. So what what are some of the projects you were working on in grad school?
A lot of my work right now, I'm really focused on fibers. I started weaving with a digital loom, but I tore a lot of tendons in my arm this summer, and that's very like upper body heavy. So
Mm-hmm.
I've switched right now to quilting. So I'm making a bunch of quilts because it's a lot less strenuous on my arm. But my like the concepts are all around my military service right now. It's kind of just what I have to talk about. It's what I
Mm-hmm.
have to get out of me, almost like bile, I guess. It's just like this foreign object that I have to get out. I talked about it in my undergrad thesis, and I really thought that like I would be done with the topic. I had taken what was left of my military uniforms and I had burned them and I had combined them with wax and made a bunch of forms.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'm done with my uniforms. I'm done thinking about the military. I've moved on. It's over. And then I took a year off and I applied for my master's. And during that year off, all I could think about was my military service. And I just realized that I wasn't done. I was like, I don't know when I was going to be done, but I just knew I wasn't done yet. I had to keep talking about it
Mm-hmm.
because it was still bothering me and I had to get it out. And art was the only way that I knew how to talk about it. I have some pretty severe PTSD from that time, and the only way for me to process was by making. I started as a painter, and then I slowly kind of moved to fibers, uh, weaving, sewing, quilting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we were prepping for this, we talked a little bit about how, as a veteran artist, people usually expect one thing or often expect one thing. And then your experience as a veteran artist is often quite different from what people are expecting. How do you approach those kinds of conversations?
I really hesitate to identify as a veteran artist.
Yeah, I guess listeners won't know that I was using quote fingers when
Yeah.
I said that, because
Yeah.
that's a really loaded identification label, because it does come with a lot of expectations.
I like to refer to myself as disabled artist or queer artist first, just
Mm-hmm.
because I have so much regret about my service. And
Mm-hmm.
just now, I'm starting to get more comfortable getting back into some veteran circles.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there's two types of people that generally join the military. There's people that are very patriotic, and then there's like the underprivileged.
Mm-hmm.
When I enlisted, I feared for my life. My parent had tried to kill me, and I decided I wasn't going to give them another chance. I was a young queer kid with nowhere to go, so the military just seemed like the best option. In a lot of ways, the Navy saved me, but at the same time, like I was taken away from one abuser and I was like kind of thrown to the wolves.
Mm-hmm.
I presented as female when I was in the military and I was like deeply, deeply in the closet. and I was sexually assaulted multiple times. So because of this, like when I got out, I was super suspicious of veteran communities because like when I looked at these guys, I kind of saw the guys that assaulted me.
Yeah.
So like I didn't trust them. And I also saw the people that didn't believe me when I tried to report. So with my work being so anti-war and anti-military, I just never know how other veterans are going to feel about it. But this year I joined About Face, which is a post 9/11 veteran anti-war group.
Hmm.
And I do feel like it kind of settled my soul a little bit in a way. Um, because I finally found like some other veterans that I could talk to that were like my age and like-minded.
Hmm.
That were like finally understanding what I was saying. It's made me a little bit more hopeful. I think the death of Aaron Bushnell was really like what triggered me to seek the group out.
Yeah.
And I know that like a bunch of other people, I know that they had like a flux of veterans joining at that point, so I know that I wasn't the only one. And I don't know that I would have reached out otherwise.
Yeah, he was the service member who self-immolated, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure for myself and for people who are listening. Um, yeah, I'm not in the military. I have not been in the military, but I had, like you said, people in our generation, the post 9/11 military and veterans. Yeah, there were kind of those two groups, the people who were underprivileged and the ones who were super patriotic. And our generation, my friends who did enlist, there's also seems to be, at least in my experience, two groups. There's the groups like that you would fit into who came back and were regretful of their service and fairly traumatized and isolated and more inclined to join About Face. And then the other group are the ones who probably experienced a similar crisis of conscience of some kind, but instead of reversing course, they doubled down and couldn't reconcile because they couldn't reconcile what they thought before and what they know now. They just had to ignore the new information that they received about the military by being in it, which is at least what I've noticed in the last 20 years since people from my cohort have joined, enlisted, and retired or left. Not very many have become artists, though. A few. I have a few that are making art, but I'm really sorry about. I mean, really sorry. Like that. That's such a cliched term, but like, you know what I mean. Like that. All of that
Yeah.
happened. That's really shitty. It's like a thing we hear about, but then when you meet somebody who has lived that.
It's weird telling younger kids now that I served when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was around,
Mhm.
and I served when it was repealed as well. But I actually did a project in undergrad about it, and the 20 somethings, which I will say I don't blame them for not knowing, but the 20 somethings in my class, they were all coming up to me to ask me what it was, so I had to amend my artist statement to explain what the policy was, which it's not their fault for not knowing, but it just changed my perspective of like, oh, this was something that was in my lifetime and now it's history, and it's something that I have to explain.
That was only President Obama that repealed it, wasn't it?
2013
Yeah.
was when it was repealed.
That's only been 11 years.
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's like uh, I mean, I believe it was Clinton that started it.
Mhm. That
Um
sounds right.
cuz I did 17 posters for 17 years.
That's almost a full generation. They say generations are roughly 20 years. So,
Yeah, instituted during the Clinton administration.
wow.
Um so it's like seeing your life become history in real time.
I experienced some of that when I was teaching. Actually, quite a bit of that when I was teaching. Because, like, these kids were born, some of them when I was, like, in college. Or, like, some of the kids were born when I had started teaching, and then they, like, got to me as a teacher, and I was like, you are... Like, I'm explaining things that happened, and they're like, that's so long ago.
I mean,
Like, telling kids who were born in the early aughts that I was born in the 80s was, like, mind-blowing to them.
in like in the 2010s, I knew people that like married their quote unquote fag hags for like military benefits and to like keep their cover.
Wow.
But like to tell kids that today, it makes me feel like an old man.
Mm-hmm. It's like when we're somehow the queer elders, but we're still looking around for someone adultier than we are to explain how things work.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's how I feel. Okay, you being in the Navy makes the Fleet Week thing click. I mean, I
Make
kind of
more
figured you must
sense.
have been. Yeah, I mean, I figured you must have been in the Navy, but so you
It was funny you
recently.
mentioned. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Funny, I mentioned NCIS.
Yes, because I watched so much NCIS before I went into the Navy, almost like I thought it was gonna prep me or something.
Oh man, we watch so much NCIS here. A friend of mine actually sent me a TikTok, and it was a video of like two boomer-aged people napping in their recliners, and NCIS was on the TV, and the caption said, "NCIS is Coco Melon for boomers."
Oh my god. It really is like a pacifier though, isn't it?
Yeah, we watch a lot of NCIS here, and
That's
we watch a lot of procedurals here, and I enjoy doing my own personal critical analysis of a lot of them. Sometimes it's just candy.
I saw a meme recently that was like ACAB means Abby too.
I know. It's like, oh, not Abby. Yeah. I mean, I think that one probably hurts a lot of people because they're like,
Yeah.
oh, but she's cool. She's not a cop.
No, but she's goth.
Yep. Goth cop.
Not my goth cop.
Yep. Oh, so anyway, the reason NCIS, for everybody else listening in, the reason NCIS came up in our conversation is because that was my only, I'm kind of embarrassed to say that is my only like schema, my only background knowledge of Fleet Week is because it would come up every so often on an episode of NCIS. You went out to Fleet Week to do research, which is what you had mentioned to me. And I was like, oh, Fleet Week. I know what that is because I've watched NCIS. I am a cultured American. I know there's more to it than what they show on TV. And I know that NCIS is not an accurate representation of the justice system or the justice system within the US military. There's my disclaimer. So what
Not
can you share
sponsor.
about your research trip?
Yeah, so Fleet Week is so I went to New York's Fleet Week. Fleet Week is in a bunch of different cities,
Yeah.
but I went to New York's this year. Fleet Week is like a time-honored tradition of the Navy, Marine, and Coast Guard, where recently deployed ships will dock in major cities for a week. The ships become like open to the public, so you can go and tour them. And like usually they'll set up demonstrations, like the dive teams will do demos and like ordnance teams, like the US Navy fleet will do like band concerts, stuff like that. I was actually supposed to go to Fleet Week back in like 2013, I think, the San Francisco one, and I got discharged like right before we were supposed to go.
Mm.
So it's kind of like the finishing of something for me a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, but it was also an opportunity for me to like step foot on a ship again and kind of like reintegrate myself into military culture. I took a ton of photos. I kept a sketch journal, and I spoke to a bunch of sailors. All of the research is going to like my thesis this year. And I'm tentatively planning a fiber recreation of the ship that I served on.
You said a fiber recreation?
Yes. So
Okay.
like a
Okay, I was
fabric.
just yep, no,
Yeah.
I was just making sure my brain had caught that correctly.
Yeah, I
Processing.
might have stumbled on the word.
I think my brain is the thing that stumbled. I don't think it was
I
you.
I like making my creations out of like uniforms
That makes
specifically.
sense. Yeah.
Um, because I like the materials that I use to have like a meaning or a memory to them.
Mhm.
I especially like it if they're like stained or like there's holes in them, because to me, like that's like there's memories in that.
Yeah.
So I want to make this recreation out of the uniforms, and so that's what all of this research was going to. I think it will be really cathartic to create it and then be able to like fold it up and put it away.
Mhm. That's really compelling. I understand what you mean about using things that have memory to them. I use a lot of vintage books in my artwork. The pages end up collaged in between the layers of paint. I collect vintage dictionaries
Mm.
because I used to be a reading teacher. So I like words and language, and I like old archaic I like books that have archaic ideas in them that we don't hopefully don't ascribe to anymore.
I really love books that have marginalia in them.
Yes, those are really
That's what
fun. Yeah, I
whenever
like
I'm at a
those too.
used bookstore, that's what I look for. If it has a bunch of marginalia, I'm like, oh, this is mine now.
Yeah, those are
Um,
fun too. I actually one of my favorite finds from the last few years was a old copy from like the 20s of Gray's Anatomy and Physiology.
I have a Grey's Anatomy too.
Yeah, but it had what I love about it is that the guy's who owned it, his name was in the front cover, and he was a local farmer rancher who like bred and developed his own breed of beef cattle.
Oh,
So like his name was super familiar to me because I grew up around here and like everyone knows these cattle. And so like this guy was like actually like into biology and animal breeding and stuff. And so it was like his copy of Gray's Anatomy. And I was like, I got it
nice.
for a quarter at the library sale. Like that was a great find. I added it to my collection. Like so I absolutely get what you mean by like having thing like stuff that has memory and provenance and like significance, even if it's like that book. Yeah, Gray's Anatomy is cool. People know what Gray's Anatomy and Physiology is, but that specific copy means something to the people in my town of 800 people.
Yeah.
And so it means something to me. I get it. I get it. I think that's really cool. I'm going to be interested to follow that project on Instagram or wherever you post it or put it. Before we get to the last question, is there anything else that you wanted to share about your art practice or about your experience in the Navy or anything else about your life you want to share?
Very open-ended question.
Or like where we can follow you on social media? Like that's a really more specific one.
Oh, well, that's yes, you can follow me at Paints Charlie on Instagram,
Great.
and I also have a website, charliereynoldstudio.com.
All right. I will put those in the show notes. So that was at Paints Charlie on Instagram and charliereynoldstudio.com.
Yes.
Great. So everyone should go follow Charlie. Go follow Charlie. I'm stumbling on my words today too. I'd probably need more coffee or less. Who knows?
I'm on my second cup.
I have to drink about the same amount every day because of my migraines. Because if I alter how much caffeine, because it's a vasoconstrictor. Um, I just a very delicate brain.
I can't have any hot coffee, so I can only have iced.
Oh, is that a
Yeah.
gastro thing?
hmm
Mm.
I can't really stand like having hot coffee. It just
Oh,
that's one thing I've lost.
That's too bad.
Just too intense.
I mean, I wouldn't mind in the summer so much, but like in the winter, I would really miss it.
Yeah, I'm that bitch that it's like 3 degrees out. I'm getting like an iced latte and they're looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, just don't worry about it.
You're like, it's okay, I'm gay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, I'm just super gay. Don't worry about it.
You're like, I'm the reason for the meme, people.
But I can never handle it. Like I'll just just comes right back up. Just
Oof.
too strong. I mean, because my coffee is very, very watered down.
Mm.
I mean, it's not really coffee at that point.
And I grew up with farmer coffee.
Mm,
So when I make my coffee in the morning, it's 2 shots of espresso and just, it's not even an Americano. I don't even add enough water for that.
that's how my husband is. But I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't drink coffee until I was on the ship, and it
Mm-hmm.
was just desperation at that point because they would have us up all night, and then it was it was so cold that like I was like I have to drink something.
Warm me up from the inside.
And I mean, they get gross about stuff too. I mean, if you ever wash like a Chiefs mug, they say like the coffee is the flavor. So sometimes they would try to like trick the youngest guy and be like, "Hey, go wash Chiefs mug." And it's like a big sin because the Chiefs like try to like keep like a grime going in their mugs
Ugh.
and you ruin it.
Like a cast iron pan, but worse.
Oh, yeah, but worse.
Ugh.
Yeah, like you ruin the flavor. And Chiefs go crazy if you
Wash their mug.
wash their mug, yeah. So every once in a while they'll get somebody.
Like someone new who doesn't know.
Yeah, because everybody does a rotation in the
Uh-huh.
Chiefs mess.
Gotcha.
I was in the officer mess,
Okay.
which was awful. I had a officer whistle at me like I was a dog, and so the chef put his taco on the floor and then served it to him.
If you're gonna whistle like a dog, eat like one.
Yeah.
All right. We have one last question. So I'm wondering, what is one true thing that you have learned from your creative practice?
So I think my one true thing would be that, art doesn't have to be like a stay up all night, drink 5 coffees in a row, like grind.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in art school, there is so much pressure to compete and to work harder than the next person. It's definitely not disability friendly. I've had to shout for myself every step of the way. But there has to be space for people like us,
Mm-hmm.
artists that have to like rest and take breaks, artists that have to alter equipment. And part of the reason why I decided to pursue my master's was because I didn't see people like me in these spaces when I like looked around. So I decided to like make space. So I think that's my one true thing is that like disabled people can make art and we should, and there's space for us there. And like we don't have to try to keep up or try to do the same thing as people that can stay up all night and like put their bodies to the limit. Just because they can do that doesn't mean that we should or that we should try to keep up with that. We
Mm.
can go our own pace, we can take longer on projects, and that's fine. And I mean, it's taken me a long time to learn that, and I still have to remind myself.
Thank you for saying all that. That's perfect. Yeah, that's all of that. I resonate with that really strongly. And I would add that even the people who aren't disabled like us, who could conceivably push their bodies to the limit and work all night, they don't have to. They can rest too.
I agree, and I think that like the less that we push that kind of culture, the better it is for everybody.
I think so
I
too.
mean, when you include accommodations, it affects everybody, not just the disabled people in the room.
Yep. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this was fun. I hope you have a great year.
Thank you. I feel like we're friends already.
I think so too. I'm so glad we connected. Congrats on the award.
Thanks. You too.
I hope is it still like a thesis or is it more like a project or a dissertation when you do an MFA?
This would be a thesis.
A
Yeah.
thesis? All right. Well, I hope your thesis and the boat and all of that goes really well for you.
Thanks so much.
I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I'll definitely keep in touch.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hoorf. To get the complete show notes and all the links mentioned on today's episode, or to get a full transcript of the episode, visit hoorfpodcast.com. Join the blessed herd of St. Winkus. By signing up for our newsletter, you can get Hoorf episodes delivered directly to your inbox. What's more, you get invitations to our monthly Coffee and Biscuits Chat, where you get to hang out with Ricki and Elle, talk about the show, and connect on the topics that mean the most to you. You can sign up for that at hoorfpodcast.com. If you become a patron for only $3 a month, you can support the creation of this podcast, help pay my editor, and join a community of caregivers out here just doing our best. Thank you again for joining me, Elle Billing, the chronically ill queer femme who is very tired, on this episode of Hoorf. Until next time, be excellent to each other. Hoorf is hosted by Elle Billing at Elle and Wink. Audio editing by Ricki Cummings at Ricki Poo. Music composed by Ricki Cummings. Hoorf is a production of Elle and Wink Art Studio LLC, all rights reserved. Hoorf can be found on all social media platforms at Hoorf Podcast, at HOORF Podcast. I'm the reason for the meme, people.